Facebook and X pages at TBC Online. President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan has transferred and assigned new workstations for several ambassadors. Here are more details.
According to a statement available to the media by the Directorate of Presidential Communication Unit today, President Samia has assigned Ambassador Togolani Mavula to be permanent representative of United Republic of Tanzania to the United Nations in New York. Ambassador Engineer Sripian John Luhemeja has been assigned to be Tanzania ambassador to Zambia. Ambassador Salim Othman Hamad has been assigned as Tanzania ambassador to Comoros. Ambassador Maulidad Bwanaheri Hassan as Tanzanian ambassador to Oman. Others are Ambassador Dr. Suleiman Haji Suleiman has been assigned as a country's ambassador to China. Ambassador Lieutenant General Matthew Edward Mkingule, who has been assigned to be Tanzanian ambassador to Cuba. Others appointed are Ambassador Swahiba Habibu Mdeme has been assigned as Tanzanian envoy to Sweden, and Ambassador Musa Haji Ali as deputy permanent representative of the United Republic of Tanzania to United Nations, New York.
President of the Republic of Ghana, John Mahama, urges African leaders to rethink development beyond natural resources, emphasizing that the true measure of a country's wealth should be the freedom, safety, and dignity according to its citizens. He insists despite Africa's vast abundance of natural resources, the continent's greatest inheritance is its human resources, its people, and cultural heritage. Here's a story by Sachelela Kongora, read by Caroline Maleo.
En faveur de la justice pour l'Afrique et pour son peuple.
The Ghanaian President John Mahama made the remarks in Arusha during the launch of the 2026 Judicial Year of African Court on Human and People's Rights in the court's 20th anniversary commemoration. He emphasizes human potential over natural resources, insisting Africa to be the champion of people-centered justice.
That the time for Africa is now. Now is the time for us to meet the challenge of keeping the promise we have made to future generations, promises we have signed and pledged to uphold. Now is the time to deepen our commitments to the courts so that in 20 years from now, when we celebrate its 40th anniversary, it will stand as the leading international judicial body and a model for others.
With 34 out of the 55 member states of the African Union have ratified the Protocol of African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the establishment of an African Court on Human and People's Rights. The president of the African Court on Human and People's Rights cites the achievements made by the court in its 20 years of operation, as well as the challenges faced.
Durant ces décisions.
First, there has been limited ratification of the protocol. We are reminded that out of the 55 countries, 34 has already ratified it, but there are still many countries that have not done so.
The Deputy Minister for Constitutional and Legal Affairs, Zainab Athumani, and Solicitor General Dr. Ali Posse highlight Tanzania's significant contributions to these institutions through hosting, infrastructure development, and professional collaboration.
The United Republic of Tanzania remains steadfast in its commitment to strengthen.
The human rights situation in Africa shows that good constitutional governance is essential. It is a key pillar for strengthening peace and development across the continent.
Indispensable pillars of sustainable peace and development across our continent.
Tumeboresha sheria mbalimbali hususan legal aids.
We have improved various laws, particularly legal aids provisions and electoral management legislation. These are areas where the African courts needs to be informed. In the past, some rulings went against Tanzania, but in one way or another, we have implemented them by improving our laws.
Earlier President of the Republic of Ghana, John Mahama, met and held talks with President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan at Arusha Sub-State House. The court is composed of 11 judges who are nationals of member states of the African Union, and the president of the court serves for a period of 2 years. Caroline Maleo, TBC News.
Rising tensions in the Middle East have entered a dangerous new phase after the death of Iran's long-time Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed on February 28, 2026, during major strikes linked to Israel and the United States against Iran, dramatically escalating a conflict that analysts say had been building for months amid growing military tensions and disputes over regional power and nuclear concerns. The development has triggered global alarm, with fears of a wider war and serious implications for international security, oil markets and economies worldwide. Caroline Maleo has prepared the following report.
The Middle East is once again at the center of global attention, following escalating tensions between Iran and the United States, as well as Israel, a situation analysts warn could reshape global politics, energy markets, and economic stability far beyond the region itself. For decades, relations between Iran and the United States have remained hostile, rooted in ideological differences, regional power struggle, and disagreements over Iran's nuclear ambitions. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran positioned itself firmly against Western influence and openly opposed Israel's existence, shaping its foreign policy around resistance to what it describes as Western dominance in the Middle East. Under the long leadership of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran maintained this ideological stance for more than 3 decades. However, recent military escalations and political developments have pushed tensions to a level many experts say represents one of the most dangerous moments in the modern geopolitics. The crisis has not only raised fears of a wider regional conflict, but has also triggered questions about global power competition. China and Russia have increasingly aligned themselves diplomatically with Iran, viewing the situation through the lens of a shifting world order, one moving away from a single dominant global power towards a more multipolar system. At the same time, critics and political observers are debating whether international conflicts sometimes influence global public attention, raising questions about agenda setting and whether major geopolitical crises can overshadow domestic political controversies in powerful nations. Inside Iran itself, leadership transition has added another layer of uncertainty. The emergence of an interim governing structure signals both continuity and vulnerability as the country navigates internal stability while facing external pressure. The key question now is whether Iran's institutions are strong enough to maintain cohesion during this critical period. Beyond politics, the economic implications are already being closely monitored worldwide. Oil markets remain highly sensitive to instability in the Middle East, and any prolonged disruptions could affect fuel prices, transport costs, and food security across developing regions, including Africa. For African economies, the impact could be felt through rising energy prices, increased shipping costs, and fluctuations in commodity markets, such as gold and agricultural imports like maize. While some resource exporting countries may benefit from higher commodity prices, many import-dependent nations could face economic strains. Historically, global crises rarely produce clear winners. Instead, they reshape alliances, redefine influence, and create unexpected consequences for both major and small economies. Caroline Maleo, TBC News.
And now to discuss the implication of the war to Tanzania, I'm joined in the studio by political analyst Vatenus Nyagera. Welcome, Nyagera, to TBC News. Since assuming leadership in 1989, Khamenei has always maintained a strong anti-Western and anti-Israel position. Why has the geopolitical impact of this ideology escalated dramatically right now?
I think it is not a bad ideology because it emanates from the cultural perspective of the people of Iran. And because we are speaking of democratic states respecting sovereignty and respecting people's decisions, I think we needed to understand clearly what was going on before. You know, it was a monarchy before, and these two nations, for example, the Americans vis-a-vis the British, they had collaboration, and they were so close, and they never actually wanted the idea of democracy, if at all you go back to history. For themselves, they wanted a strong ally who will not go deeper to the side of the communism by then or socialism. So the idea of religion to them was the best ally for them to push the agenda. So the issue of the clerics in Iran, they were the ones actually who built them to have more powerful kind of a sense of ideology. So when you look at that, and the world is changing. For them, they have been so strong and so conservative to their rules, especially when 1979, when it actually became Islamic Republic of Iran. That's where the crisis began, because now they openly announced going against Israel, closed the embassy in Tehran, and being anti-West and all that. But the nuclear program and the nuclear technology, it has been started by the Americans in the 1950s, and they were supporting the Shah before actually they came into power. Yes. And when we say democratic country, the democratic election which was done in the 1951 thereabout, was toppled on when this Mohammadi Mossadegh was overthrown. Yes. And they returned back the monarchy, and the Shah started. So in 1979, that's where now the problem began, because they didn't want to go back to that route. And they attempted actually to build a democratic society. For that, I think, was the second time or the third time.
Okay. So, now, Niagira, how imminent are African economies set to feel the impacts of this conflict? And which sectors do you think are most vulnerable?
You know, like how it was even the Ukraine, and when you look Ukraine geographically where it is very far, but we felt the damage. And when you look at the Middle East, we are in the part of the Middle East. We are southern Sahara, but when you look at the northern part of Africa, is the part of the MENA countries, the Middle East, North African countries. So it is at our neighbor door. And when it prolongs, for example, for more than, and as I see, you know, the Iranians, they have a longevity of fighting. And it may go beyond what even people think it's 90 days. It may go beyond 90 days. And because their supreme leader, whom they believe, the clerics they believe, they may take it personal, more personal, and it may go beyond. Now, when it goes beyond, we will be speaking of inflation, we will be speaking of the high cost, as Caroline has said, cost of transportation, cost of many things, prices will go higher. Because we will have a deficit in the energy, especially the fuel together with the gas, and then we will go back to square number one, to where we were. And you should know that these nations in Africa, they have been faced with some issues with the change of American policy on American first. And you see WHO funding on WHO had a problem, and the USAID had gone out. Yes. So we are in the crisis already. Okay, so,
but what now as a nation, Tanzania, is there anything that we can do to mitigate the effects of this conflict?
Yes, there is. What we can do is what they did actually. They had a kind of a stimulus package which they introduced on fuel, and it at least reduced the gravity of the effect, of the impact. And I think now they needed to start preparing on that. But also they need now to check on their expenses and the size of the government, and they have to be very careful on the issues of food security. And we need now to start advocating two things in food security: food loss and food waste. And we have much of that. We have a lot of food loss that moving from let's say from the farmers up to the final consumer, we have a lot we are missing, because we don't have a lot of warehouses where we can keep our crops. But at the same time, we don't have a technology where we can make these products we get, the raw materials, and transform them either into, let's say, talk of horticulture, talk of fruits, to turn them into juice and all this. So we need to be so pragmatic at this hour.
Definitely. Nagira, some analysts may argue that global conflicts tend to sometimes shift away public attention away from domestic political controversies. Do you think that the Iran-U.S. ongoing conflict is acting as a function, is doing an agenda-setting functionality to like look away from other things internationally?
Yes. You know, it has come at the time when we speak of this conspiracy of Epstein files. Yes. They were so much too deep into many things. But also we had this crisis of, speaking of the West African countries having their own kind of a system, breaking away from the ECOWAS. But when you go the other side, we had the Ukraine and Russia war. We had the Americans starting now speaking of the Greenland. So that story has disappeared, and nobody will go back to it. So currently, all of us, our eyes are on Iran, and we are speaking of the Gulf countries because now everything is being escalated in the Gulf countries, and we never know what's going to happen. So it is agenda setting, and many things are going not to be looked on. For example, America, when you look at Trump, what he does, even the analysts within the American soil, they are saying that does not care the law. Has no any sense of that.
Okay,
so,
and lastly now, we have seen tensions. You have mentioned the issue with Russia, Venezuela, and now Iran. Is there a pattern in how global rivalries are unfolding? Like who is next? Do you think there's a pattern there?
I don't see who is next because you know, these crises, for example, the Venezuela has been long. It has been in the American kind of a plan. Iran is the same thing. Israel and the Gaza and the Palestine, it has been there for some time. And when you look at who is next, maybe they talk of Russia, they talk of China, and they are not going actually to hit the Chinese directly. They will be hitting their trading partners. So this is what we should start looking. The trade partners, they are going to be disrupted. And when you look, for example, Iran is the same thing. They were trading with the Russian, trading with the Chinese. Yes. So China and Russia are the people who are supposed to look at themselves more clearly because their best trading allies are going to be hit the most.
Okay, thank you so much, Nagira, for your time.
Thank you.
And on to the next news. The Minister of State in the President's Office, Planning and Investment, Professor Kitila Mkumbo, says improving the business environment is essential if Tanzania is to achieve its 2050 long-term development vision. Professor Mkumbo made the remarks during a high-level consultation meeting with ambassadors, representatives of the international community, and development partners under the Mkumbi, the second platform, a national dialogue aimed at proposing strategies to strengthen the investment and business environment in Tanzania. The meeting also involved private sector stakeholders from both local and international business communities. Asadels reports.
As Tanzania moves towards its ambitious goal of becoming a $1 trillion economy by 2050, with the implementation of the long-term development plan set to begin on July 1st this year, the vision seeks to transform the country into a prosperous, just, inclusive and self-reliant nation, with the private sector expected to play a critical role in achieving the vision. Stakeholders emphasize that a conducive and predictable business environment is key in driving sustainable economic growth.
Particularly our ambition to becoming a $1 trillion economy by 2050, we must radically improve our business environment. History and evidence show that Africa's development trajectory has been constrained by several structural factors. But chief among these is really the unfriendly business environment, which limits economic freedom and suppresses entrepreneurial dynamism. Overregulation, excessive bureaucracy, inadequate infrastructure, policy unpredictability, and corruption have always stood in the way of unlocking our continent's full potential.
On the other hand, the ambassador of the Union of the Comoros to Tanzania, Dr. Ahamdar El Badawi, says that Tanzania's continued peace and stability remain a fundamental pillar for the development and investment, while the Deputy Executive Secretary for Trade and Innovation at the National Planning Commission, Blandina Kilamer insists that Mkumbi's second platform aligns with the effort to support the 2050 development vision, while the private sector positioned as a key driver of economic transformation.
Can be successful, that effort can't be successful without a peace in Tanzania. Tanzania is a country which we are living with the peace. We pray God to continue to give peace in the country.
The second Mkumbi initiative are central to achieving DIRA. The DIRA is given life by Mkumbi 2, and we're really happy to have you all here this morning, because Mkumbi 2 aims to strengthen the regulatory and business environment by reducing the compliance burdens and enhancing digital governance services. Mkumbi is expected to lower the cost of doing business and boost investors' confidence and support SMEs' growth.
The first Mkumbi platform recorded a notable progress, while the second phase represents both continuity and reform. This time, private sector stakeholders have presented 11 key areas of intervention, identifying 59 challenges affecting the investment climate and proposing 246 reform actions aimed at addressing those challenges. Esther Deus, TBC News.
And now, before we conclude the news bulletin for tonight, let's take a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
A warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us. This is 24 hours weather forecast from Tanzania Meteorological Authority, starting from tonight, 9 p.m. For tonight, we expect partly cloud conditions, thunder showers over areas for the entire country. For tomorrow, wind is expected to flow at the speed of 10 kilometers per hour over Lake Victoria, Lake Tanganyika, and Lake Nyasa, and at the speed of 30 kilometers per hour over Lake Rukwa. The state of the lake is expected to be slight to moderate. While for the entire coast, wind is expected to flow at the speed of 20 kilometers per hour, and the state of the sea is expected to be slight. And now let us see of the weather details. Over Lake Victoria Basin and western part of the country, we expect cloud conditions, thunder showers over few areas, and sun intervals. For southwestern highlands, central part of the country, northeastern highland, the entire coast and southern region, we expect partly cloud conditions, thunder showers over few areas, and sun periods. And now let us take a look of the next 4 days weather forecast. For Dar es Salaam, we expect thunder showers. Dodoma, we expect thunder showers. For Mbeya, we expect thunder showers. Mwanza, we expect thunder showers. Kilimanjaro, we expect thunder showers. Morogoro, we expect thunder showers. In Arusha, we expect thunder showers. And that's all for today. Make sure to catch up again tomorrow. From Tanzania Meteorological Authority, my name is Mariam Faris. Bye-bye.
And that marks the end of our news bulletin for tonight. Do not miss our next bulletin in Kiswahili at 11 p.m. On behalf of the whole team, I am Teddy Mfanyanga. Have a lovely, lovely night.